timer depends on PLL for its operation. UART require both PLL as well as timer for its operation. So all the three are interlinked topics. So today we will revise the three. In case if you haven't focused this already, in case if you have any doubts already, please do focus for today's class so that we will complete your doubts and clarify it. Let us start. PLL is a block that is present inside your LPC2148 microcontroller to boost the incoming oscillator clock to a maximum of 60 MHz. There are two PLLs present in LPC2148. One is PLL0, the other one is PLL1. PLL0 is meant for all the timing applications. PLL1 is basically used for USB operation. So what we are using for today's class is for PLL0. This is the PLL architecture. You have the oscillator. The oscillator is of course powered by a crystal. And you have a couple of capacitors connected to ground. This fellow gives you 12 MHz at the output. This 12 MHz, we are trying to convert it into a 60 MHz clock internal to the processor. This 60 MHz clock that is coming out of the PLL is called CPU clock. So this CPU goes to CPU. So the CPU operates at 60 MHz. LPC2148 gives the choice to the user whether you want to use the same 60 MHz coming at the output. There is a branch of the same 60 MHz coming down. Whether you want to use the same 60 MHz for all the peripherals, this is called a peripheral clock. This peripheral clock supplies the clock frequency for all the peripherals, including my timer, including my UART, including all your SPI, I2C, ADC, DAC. All the peripherals derive the clock only from the peripheral clock. So you have a choice here whether to use the same 60 MHz for the peripheral clock or to scale down the clock by a suitable factor. In our case, we are maintaining the same 60 MHz to the peripheral clock as well. So we are also deriving the same 60 MHz here, which means we are putting a suitable value for VLSI peripheral bus divider, which is hexadecimal 01. Thereby, the same 60 MHz clock that is coming out of the PLL is used for peripheral clock also. So for our case, the CPU clock is equal to 60 MHz, which is same as the peripheral clock. So this is the understanding that you should have. Next thing comes, how am I going to generate this 60 MHz clock from the 12 MHz input from the oscillator using the PLL? This PLL internally has a current controlled oscillator, and we have two factors, namely multiplier factor and divider factor, which is used by this PLL block to generate the 60 MHz output. Let us not get into the intricacies of PLL. Let us see how to configure it. The first one, to use a PLL, you should know how to enable it. For that, you have a PLL0 control SFR. This control SFR, though it is a 32-bit SFR, the first two bits are more important for us. The first bit is called the enable bit. The second bit is called the connect bit. So this is the enable bit. This is the connect bit. What is the significance of these two bits? If I put enable is equal to 1, then the PLL will be enabled. The PLL will work. If I put enable equal to 0, the PLL will not work. Very simple. So if you want to use PLL, it is necessary that you have to make the enable bit as a 1. So that is mandatory. What is connect bit? Whether you want this PLL to be connected to the CPU clock, or whether the CPU clock has to take directly the oscillator clock and then supply to the CPU, which means this PLL is out of the block. So if you put connect equal to 1, C equal to 1 means PLL block is inserted into the chain, which means the PLL is the one which supplies the clock to the CPU. If you put PLL equal to 0, the connect equal to 0, in that case, PLL is no longer part of the chain. Not part of the chain means what? PLL is disconnected. Okay, so how do we use this connect bit? Connect bit has to be 0 initially. Initially, we put connect bit equal to 0. That is the first thing. Second thing, you make the PLL to achieve your desired clock of 60 MHz. Third thing, once the PLL generates 60 MHz, then only you put connect equal to 0, connect equal to 1 and connect it. So we don't put connect equal to 1 at the initial stages. We connect the PLL only when the PLL generates 60 MHz, not up to that. So what is the logic behind it? So if we use PLL0 control SFR, we initially only enable the SFR. We only use the enable bit and make the PLL to turn on, but we don't connect it. We put this fellow 0. So initially what I do, I make enable equal to 1 and I make connect equal to 0. So PLL 0 control SFR equal to hexadecimal 01. So this is the initial case. This is the first case. Later, you make the PLL to generate the 60 MHz clock. And then finally, if you ensure that the PLL is generating the 60 MHz clock, then it is time for you to enable and connect. It is only now I put PLL0 control equal to hexadecimal. This is also 1 and this is also 1, which means hexadecimal 03. This is enable and connect. Which is enable and connect. Is it clear? So this is the initial condition. We start with enable equal to 1 and connect equal to 0. Later on, we make the PLL to generate 60 MHz clock. Finally, we make connect equal to 1 and enable equal to 1. So this is the initial stage, this is the final stage. So this is regarding PLL0 control SFR. Next thing, second thing is PLL configure register. PLL configure register is used to load the values of M select and P select and make your PLL to generate 60 MHz output. 60 MHz output. So you have to load appropriate values of M select and load appropriate values of P select, so that the PL will generate 60 MHz. The desired value of M select is number 4. If you put 4, the processor will add 1 to it, and then the total value becomes 5. Why the processor is adding 1 to it? Because the processor never trusts you. By default, if you put some value 0, then the entire system is going to get affected. So the processor always adds 1 to whatever you put it. So you put 4, if you want 5, you put 4, the processor will add a share of 1. Totally the value becomes 5. So the total value M select is 5. So I load 4 so that the total value becomes 5. So that is the concept here. So M select is 5, P select is 2. So these are the desired values for 60 MHz. Next concept that you have to understand is how to calculate the value of M select and P select. You are saying M is equal to 5 and P equal to 2. How did you came to this conclusion? How did you calculate it? So we used 2 equations here. The value of CPU clock or C clock is equal to M multiplied by the value of oscillator frequency or oscillator clock. Whatever is the oscillator clock, you multiply that by M, you end up in getting CPU clock. That is the first equation. The second equation is the frequency of current controlled oscillator, CPU clock, is also equal to frequency of current controlled oscillator divided by 2P. So this is the second equation. So with these 2 equations, we figure out what is the value of M and what is the value of P. So that is what we are going to do now. How to calculate M select? This is the oscillator output. This oscillator output is 12 MHz. The desired output that I want is 60 MHz. So M is a simple factor. By what factor I should multiply this F oscillator or oscillator clock so that I end up in getting 60 MHz. So what is the value of M? M equal to CPU clock frequency divided by frequency of oscillator or oscillator clock. CPU clock is 12 MHz. CPU clock requirement is 60 MHz. I have oscillator clock of 12 MHz. Therefore, I end up in getting M value of 5. So this is the desired value. The actual value that you should load actual value to be loaded equal to desired value minus of 1. So 5 minus of 1, 4 is what I will load. So this is what we do. For M select, we put a value of 4. Second thing, how to calculate P select. We already know an equation, CPU clock equal to frequency of current controlled oscillator divided by 2P. This implies P is equal to frequency of current controlled oscillator by 2 times of C clock. If you bring the C clock down, there is a condition in LPC 2148 that the frequency of current controlled oscillation should be between these 2 frequency limits, 156 MHz to 320 MHz. So in the first case, when frequency of current controlled oscillator is equal to 156 MHz, you calculate what is the value of P. So P is equal to frequency of current controlled oscillator is 156 megahertz divided by 2 times of my desired value of CPU clock, which is 60 megahertz. So it is 156 megahertz divided by 120 megahertz. That gives me a value of 1.3. So that is case 1. Case 2, you have a frequency of current controlled oscillator at the other extreme, which is 320 megahertz. As a designer, you have to make sure that the frequency of current controlled operator, which is inside your PLL, to work between these two limits. So that is what I am trying to do here. So the value of P in this case is equal to, in this case, the frequency of current controlled oscillator is 320 megahertz. I'm just using this expression divided by 2 into CPU clock. 2 into CPU clock is 60 megahertz, which is equal to 320 megahertz divided by 120 megahertz. 320 by 120 is how much? 2.67. That is case 2. Then the first case you have 1.3. In the second case you have 2.67. So what is the round number between 1.3 and 2.67? You have to choose a round number between 1.3 to 2.67. The round number between 1.3 and 2.67 is 2. So for a P value of 2, what is the value that you should load in binary? 0, 1. So if you require P is equal to 2, I should load a binary value of 0, 1 into the P select bits. So that is what we are doing in the PLL0 config register. In the PLL config register, which is a 32-bit register, the first 7 bits are used for loading M select and P select, of which the first 5 bits are reserved for M select. This is reserved for M select. And the next 2 bits are reserved for P select. What is our desired value of M select? Desired value of M select is 5. What is the value that we should load? We should load 5 minus of 1, which is equal to 4. What is 4 in binary? 0, 1, 0, 0. So 0, 1, 0, 0. I simply add another 0 in front of it because it is not going to change the value. So this is the M select value that I load into PLL0 config register. Coming back to P select, the desired value is 2. For a desired value of 2, the value that I should load into P select bits 5 and 6. What is bits 5 and 6? This is bits 5 and 6. Bit 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Bit 5 and 6 is used for P select. So what is the desired value of P select? 2. For that, the binary value is 0, 1. Don't get confused. Don't put 1, 0. So this is something that you have to understand. The processor has already given set of binary sequence for a specific value of P. For P equal to 2, you have to load 0, 1, not 1, 0. So that you have to keep in mind. So we have to load 0, 1 here. So I put 0, 1. So this is anyway going to be 0. So what is the binary sequence here? 0, 0, 1, 0 and 0, 1, 0, 0. So in hexadecimal it is 24. So I load PLL0 config register equal to hexadecimal 24. This is my second part. So if I load PLL0 is equal to hexadecimal 24, I am preparing the PLL with the appropriate values of M select and P select so that it end up in generating 60 megahertz. So that is the job of your config register. The config register is used to make the PLL to generate 60 megahertz output. So that is what we are trying to do here. Third thing, once you load the PLL with appropriate values of mselect and pselect, the processor will start generating 60 MHz using the PLL. But as a designer, how do I know that it has achieved 60 MHz? This is where the status register comes. Status register is always used to get the feedback. The word status means what is the current condition, what is the current status. So how do I know? In any peripheral, the microcontroller will always have a status register. The job of the status register is to tell the designer what is the present scenario of that particular peripheral. Now in this case, even though PLL status register is a 32-bit register, only one particular bit is of important use for me, which is bit number 10. This bit number 10 is called the PLL lock bit. This PLL lock bit will become equal to 1 the moment the PLL has achieved the desired frequency. In this case, my desired frequency is 60 MHz. If the processor has achieved 60 MHz, the lock bit becomes 1. If the lock bit is equal to 0, what does it mean? The PLL is busy in generating, either it is busy in generating the 60 MHz or the desired output, or it is not functional at all. In either case, we should not connect the PLL to the original system, to the chain. Don't connect the PLL. What is the moral of the story here? Don't connect the PLL to the system or to the chain unless it generates the desired frequency. So how do I know that the PLL has generated the 60 MHz output? This is where the status register comes into picture. So how do I do that? I take PLL 0 status register. I perform a bitwise handoff, hexadecimal 01, left shift this by 10 times. Why? Because I am interested in checking the 10th bit. If this number results in a 0, then I simply keep waiting here. I simply keep wait there as long as it is 0. Are you able to understand? If the processor is busy in performing the 60 MHz, then at some point the P-lock bit becomes 1, then this condition will fail and then it will come out of this instruction and then it will execute the next instruction. In case if the PLL is not working at all, then this is a dead trap. What do you mean by a dead trap? The processor will never come out of that statement. That is where you get permanently stuck. So I have told many times, never go into these kind of infinite loops without doing the initial mechanism properly. When do I go into this kind of condition checking? Only after initializing the PLL with appropriate values of PLL configure register. Only when you do this, then the PLL will start generating the 60 MHz. Then there is point in going for this infinite while loop conditional checking. Without doing anything into the PLL, and if the PLL is ideal, and if you are going into this kind of condition checking without loading any initial values of PLL, doesn't make any sense at all. Why? Because the PLL will never generate 60 MHz and this condition will never get satisfied, and this is going to be a permanent dead trap. So don't get into this kind of traps without doing initial work properly. So this is something that you have to make into. Keep this in mind. So if lock bit P-lock is equal to 1, which means I have achieved 60 MHz, then it's time for me to connect to the PLL. So what is the feed sequence? I have already given you an ATM example. Feed sequence is some kind of a security key that you are providing to the microcontroller in order to access secure resources. PLL, your internal PLL is a very secure resource. So your microcontroller doesn't want any accidental access to. So the microcontroller doesn't provide any accidental access to this secure resource. So it expects you to provide some kind of a security key. This is a security key. So only when you provide the secure key, the microcontroller will process your request. So this is processor specific and manufacturer specific. So we have to provide this feed sequence in the same format, in the same order. AA and 55 is the feed sequence. So only when you provide this, then the microcontroller will take your request and process this as far as your PLL is concerned. This is not applicable to all the resources, only for secure resources, because PLL is a very secure resource that determines the entire functionality that affects the entire peripheral of the microcontroller. Last but not the least, how do you derive your peripheral clock from the CPU clock? The CPU clock is the clock output of your PLL, which is coming at 60 MHz. How do you want your peripheral clock from the CPU clock? Okay, so these are the four possible options. If you put VLSI peripheral bus divider, VLSI peripheral bus divider is another SFR that you can put four possible combinations. If you put VLSI peripheral bus divider as 00, your P clock is equal to 1/4 of your CPU clock. P clock is equal to 1/4 of CPU clock. What does it mean? If CPU clock is coming at 60 MHz, if you put VLSI peripheral bus divider as 00, then you end up in getting 1/4 of CPU clock. 1/4 of 60 MHz is 15 MHz. So you get P clock is equal to 15 MHz. If you put VLSI peripheral bus divider as 01, then in that case, your peripheral clock is same as your CPU clock. This is the choice that we have preferred. We have used peripheral clock as same as CPU clock. And if you put peripheral clock is equal to, if you put VLSI peripheral bus divider as 02, then your peripheral clock equal to 1/2 of CPU clock. 03 is reserved, we are not using it. So we have options for taking either 1/4 or 1/2 or the same frequency. We are using the same frequency. This is the option that we are using. For that, your VLSI peripheral bus divider has to be hexadecimal 01. This is what you have to understand. So let us consolidate our discussion. Pay your attention here, please. How to initialize the PLL? First one is to enable the PLL. PLL 0 control register is equal to hexadecimal 01. I don't use the connect bit. I use only the enable bit. PLL 0 configure register equal to, I have to load M select and P select. So what is the value that I have to load? Hexadecimal 24. Hexadecimal 24 is for M is equal to 4 and P equal to 2. Then you have to apply the feed sequence. What is feed sequence? PLL 0 feed equal to hexadecimal AA and PLL 0 feed equal to hexadecimal 55. The moment you apply the feed sequence, the microcontroller will start processing your request. What is my request? I want the PLL to generate 60 MHz. The microcontroller will now start the PLL and it will generate 60 MHz using the PLL. So as a designer, I have to make sure that whether it has achieved that 60 MHz. How do I do that? I check the status register, PLL 0 status register, and I perform and the operation of hexadecimal 01, left shift this by 10 times because 10th bit is my lock bit, and check whether this is equal to 0. By putting a while statement. So what am I doing? I am checking whether the p lock bit, whether it is equal to a 1. So if p lock bit is a 1, then I'll go for further processing. If p lock is equal to 0, then I wait. If you don't do the initial operations, it becomes an indefinite wait. If you do all these initial operations, then at some point in time, the processor will make the p lock bit equal to 1. That you have to keep in mind. Once you are having your p lock bit as a 1, which means the processor is now generating 60 MHz, it's time for you to connect it. PLL0 control is equal to hexadecimal 03. You have to clearly understand the difference between control equal to 01 and control equal to 03. 01 is for enable, 03 is for enable and connect. So that is the difference. So if you are connecting it, again the microcontroller will expect the feed sequence, so which you have to provide again. Last but not the least, I have to generate the P clock. How do I generate the P clock? I write VLSI peripheral bus divider, which is a 32-bit SFR. I load that with 01. If I load that with 01, I end up in getting P clock is equal to CPU clock. So that is the last thing that I do. So this is what we did. So for this 5 line of code, you require 1 hour of discussion. So that's what we did here. So I am just quickly reviewing this. Init PLL is the name of the function we used. First, we are making PLL0 control register as 01. We are making enable equal to 1. Second one, we are making config register as 24. Config register equal to 24 means M select equal to 4, P select equal to 2. The processor will add 1 to it. Next one, I am checking the status. Next one, I am issuing the feed sequence AA55. Next one, I am checking the condition of P lock bit. If P lock is equal to 1, then I connect the PLL. So in this case, enable is equal to 1, connect is also equal to 1. I again issue the feed sequence. Finally, I derive the peripheral clock. P clock is equal to C clock. This init PLL has to be the very first statement in all your microcontroller code, which involves timing. If there is no requirement for timing, then there is no need. If you are planning to use timing, then generating 60 MHz is mandatory. In that case, it is expected that you follow this without fail. Next thing comes the timer. This is the timer chain. First comes the oscillator, which provides 12 MHz. PLL generates 60 MHz. This is my original timer. Between my PLL and my timer, I have a prescaler. What is a prescaler? A prescaler is a circuit. This is a simple clock divider. What is the job of this clock divider? This fellow divides the incoming peripheral clock to a suitable timer clock. So that is the job of your prescaler. The beauty of LPC 2148 is this is a variable prescaler. Variable prescaler means the user can put any value there and divide the 60 MHz clock to virtually any frequency here. That is the power of LPC 2148. LPC 2148 will give you the option for designing any particular frequency to your timer. unlike in LPC, unlike in 8051 where you have a fixed value of 12. Let us start with the count control register. Count control register is used to set the mode of your timer. Whether am I going to use the timer as timer for timing applications, or whether going to use that fellow as a event counter. That is the first thing. So set the mode of the timer. This is something similar to your T mode SFR. Count control register is something similar to your T mode in LPC in 8051. How do I do that? So the first 2 bits are of important for us. So this will give you 4 possible combinations. If it is 00, then that fellow is used as a timer. For the rest of the 3 combinations, it is used as a counter. 01, 10, and 11. In all the 3 cases, the timer is used as an event counter. What do you mean by an event counter? It takes an external pulse and count that. If it is used as a timer, it takes the input from the internal oscillator. That is the difference. Now, what is the difference between 01, 10, and 11? No doubt in all the 3 cases, it will take an external pulses. Where exactly the count happens is decided by these 3 values. 01 means the timer will increment its value whenever the external signal undergoes a transition from low to high. If you are setting it as 10, the timer will increment its value whenever the external signal undergoes a transition from 1 to 0. This is a rising edge, this is a falling edge. If you set the value as 11, the microcontroller will count for both the edges, both for rising as well as falling. So both edges are counted. So this is the difference. So if you are using your timer as timing applications, you have to put the count control register as 00. So that is the first thing that you have to understand. Next one, how to set the prescaler. This is a pretty simple max. The incoming clock is 60 MHz. What is the clock that you want the timer to count? Is it the desired clock or the timer clock? I clock this as peripheral clock. This as my timer clock. So by what factor I have to divide this? So what is the prescaler register value? Prescaler register value is equal to what is the incoming peak clock value divided by what factor you want to divide it so that the timer clock is achieved. Let us say, for example, the peripheral clock is 60 MHz. I want the timer clock to be at 1 kHz. Why 1 kHz? So that it takes 1 millisecond for 1 cycle. So the timer takes 1 millisecond for counting 1 count. That is why, because that's the most preferred delay generation time slot. If the microcontroller is able to generate delays for each millisecond and each microsecond, you can conveniently handle any application. So the 2 most widely used timer clock frequencies are either at 1 kHz, thereby I end up in getting 1 millisecond for 1 count, or the incoming clock coming at 1 MHz, so that the microcontroller takes 1 microsecond for counting 1 count. So these are the 2 desired values. So for each of these desired value, you have to load an appropriate prescaler. So for the first scenario, if the timer clock happened to be at 1 kHz, what is my prescaler? It is 60 into 10 raised to 6 divided by 1 kHz is 1 into 10 raised to 3. So this goes here 3 times. This is 60,000. So the prescaler that you have calculated is 60,000. But what you have to load here? I have to load 1 less than the desired value. So I load 60,000 minus of 1. Then I load 59,999. So I load only 59,999 to this prescaler. Why I do that way? Because the processor will always add 1 to whatever I load. Thereby it becomes 60,000. Still the value is 60,000 only, but the processor will add 1 to it. So I subtract 1 and I load. This is for a timer clock of 1 millisecond. Suppose if your timer clock requirement is 1 microsecond, then in that case it is 60 MHz divided by timer clock is 1 MHz. So 60 MHz by 1 MHz is 60. What is the value that I should load? I should load 1 less than 60. So 60 minus of 1 equal to 59. So if I load 59 into prescalar, the processor will add 1 to it, thereby it becomes 60. So these are the prescalar values. So in general sense, prescalar is simply a clock divider, which divides the peripheral clock to a suitable frequency to your timer. So that is something that you have to understand. Third thing, how to control the timer. Controlling the timer means what? How to run that, how to stop it. This is the simple thing. Controlling the timer means the run control bits of 8051 is used for that. Running the timer and when to run and when to stop it. So the very first bit is the enable bit, E. If enable bit is equal to 1, the timer runs. If enable bit is equal to 0, the timer stops. So this is something that you have to understand. So this is the timer control SFR. The next bit is the reset bit, which we don't use. If you put the reset bit, if you put reset bit as a 1, the timer counter, or which is the timer, becomes 0. This is essentially used for resetting your timer. If this is equal to 0, nothing happens. But as I told already, we will not be using this because we can simply put a timer counter equal to 0. This is more appropriate and more straightforward than using this reset bit. So we use only one bit of this particular timer control register, which is the LSB. For example, timer 0, timer control register equal to hexadecimal 01. 01 means the enable bit equal to 1. In that case, the timer starts running. Are you able to understand? On the other hand, if I put timer 0, timer control register is equal to hexadecimal 00, in that case, the timer stops. Very simple. So I play with the LSB. If I make that as a 1, the timer starts counting. If I make it 0, it stops counting. The reset bit I don't use. Last but not the least, the timer control register. Timer control register is the actual timer. What is the chain? Oscillator followed by PLL followed by prescalar. Finally comes the timer counter. Timer counter is the last fellow in the chain. The important thing is this is a 32-bit register. 32-bit register means what? Minimum count it can count is a 0. All 32 bits 0. This entire value, all 32 bits becoming 0. That is the minimum count. Maximum count is 2 power of 32 minus of 1. Total count is 2 power of 32. So that is the value. By the sheer 32-bit value, it can generate any higher delay period. As I told you, we have roughly calculated if the timer clock happened to be at 1 kilohertz, 1K, the timer counter roughly takes 50 days to overflow. Okay? How you get that number? If a timer clock is equal to 1 kilohertz, the frequency is equal to 1 kilohertz, and the time period is equal to 1 millisecond. What is this 1 millisecond? The timer takes 1 millisecond to count one count. How many count the timer can count totally? 2 power of 32 count. What is 2 power of 32? 2. I go to scientific. That fellow is also not having. Where is that x to the power of y? 2 x to the power of y 32 equal to 429 crores. I'll just 429 crores 429 crores 49 lakhs 67,296. This is the total count, 2 power of 32. So if this is the total count, what is the total delay that it can achieve? Calculate and tell me. Total delay is equal to total count n into time for one count. Time for one count is 1 millisecond. N in this case is 429 crores 49 lakhs 67,296. So into 1 millisecond is that many number of milliseconds. So the total delay in millisecond is this many number of milliseconds. In seconds it is 429 49 67.296 seconds. You divide this by 1000, 0.296 seconds. So convert this into hours. So you divide this by 1000. So this is the seconds. Divide this by hours, divided by 3600 seconds. So 1193 hours. Divide this by 24, 49.71 days. So what does it mean? Suppose I reset my timer counter to 0 and start the timer today, okay, with one kilohertz incoming clock. What I mean by 1 kilohertz incoming clock, when the timer takes 1 kilohertz as the incoming clock, and if I start the timer, and then it will take roughly 50 days to overflow. So that is the sheer power of 32-bit counter. Because of this 32-bit counter, you can create any higher order delays without performing multiple loops. In 8051, the highest delay that we can achieve with 11.0592 MHz is roughly around 70 milliseconds or so. It is not even 1 second, it is 70 milliseconds. So we have to use looping technique in order to achieve higher delays. For LPC 2148, you really don't require that particular thing. So that is something that you have to understand. Now let us consolidate here. So what is the delay thing that you have to, what is the algorithm for creating delays? First one, you have to configure your timer counter as a timer. What is the SFR? For timer 0, you have to use count control register, CTCR. CTCR is equal to hexadecimal 00. When the first 2 bits are 00, then it is configured as timer. For 01, 10, 11, it is used as counter. So we are using count control register as 00. Next thing, you have to load the prescaler with appropriate values. Timer 0 prescaler register is equal to 59,999 if you are interested in 1 kilohertz clock. The same time becomes 59 if you are interested in 1 megahertz clock. So that is the prescaler value. I have already told you how to do that. Then reset the timer. Timer 0, timer counter is equal to 0. Simply make the timer value as 0. Start the timer. Timer 0, timer control register is equal to hexadecimal 01. The very first bit of timer control register is the run bit. I control that. Wait for the desired count. How do I wait? check for timer 0 timer counter as long as it is less than n number of counts, where n refers to a delay period. I keep waiting here. Finally, stop the timer. How do I stop the timer? Timer 0, timer control register is equal to stop this bit. Hexadecimal 00. So this is the delay algorithm. This is pretty straightforward. The algorithm is still the same thing. Whatever we did in 8051, we are still doing the same thing. But the way in which we approach is slightly different. That's all. So timer 0, count control register is 00, configure timer 0 as timer. Timer 0 prescaler value is equal to 60,000 minus of 1, which is 59,999. This is for 1 kilohertz timer clock input. Then reset the timer. Timer 0, timer counter equal to 0. Then start the enable the timer means start the timer. Timer 0, timer control equal to 0, 1. And check for timer 0, timer counter whether it has reached milliseconds. Millisecond is the delay period that the user is passing. So I just straight away pass this value to here. So as long as timer 0, timer counter is less than millisecond, you keep waiting here. The moment it reaches, you come out. Finally, before you come out, make sure you stop the timer. Enable and disable is a crude way of telling it. Start and stop is the straightforward way of telling it. Timer 0, timer control is 0, it stops it. We also wrote another delay program with microsecond here. The only difference is the prescaler value. The prescaler value, instead of 59,999, we have to load that with 59, so that the timer clock becomes 1 megahertz. That is the only difference that we made. If we have a function which can calculate millisecond delay and microsecond delay, that is good enough for you to perform any delay applications. That's what we saw. In UART, unlike in 8051 microcontroller, we have to first configure the pin. Configuring the pin means what? In LPC 2148, each pin can theoretically perform up to a maximum of 4 functions, of which GPIO is the default function. So far, we have been using only GPIO, so we are not configuring the pins for any other function other than GPIO. So we are little bothered about it, not bothered about it. But the moment you wanted to use some other function other than GPIO, then you have to explicitly tell the microcontroller what exact special function that you are planning to use other than GPIO. The SFR which is used for that purpose is called pin select SFR. Pin select SFR is used to tell the microcontroller what exact special function you are planning to use apart from the standard GPIO. There are 3 versions of that: pin select 0, pin select 1, and pin select 2. Pin select 0 deal with port 0.0 to port 0.15. Why only 16 pins? Because each pin requires 2 bits. So 16 into 2, 32 bits. So one pin select SFR cannot accommodate more than 16 pins. That is the logic. Pin select 1 deal with port 0.16 to port 0.31. So these 16 pins are taken care of by pin select 1. And finally comes the port 1, where port 1.16 to port 1.31. Because port 1.0 to 1.15 is not available. So we deal only with the top 16 bits. So there are 3 pin select SFRs. Each SFR can deal 16 pins. 16 into 2, 32 bits. Because each pin requires 2 bits. Why 2 bits? 4 possible functions. 4 possible functions means 2 bits can have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. 0, 0 means it will perform the default function. 0, 1 means first special function. 1, 0 means second special function. 1, 1 means third special function. So this is the hierarchy. Okay, so that is the example that I gave you on the day. Pin number 33, if you take, 33 is having, I am just zooming that for your understanding here. 33 is having the following pin information. The default function is port 0.8 bar transmit data 8.1, that is UART of transmit pin of UART 1, then PWM channel 4 and ADC 1.1. So these are the 4 options for that particular pin. The pin number that we are talking about is pin 33. Pin 33 can perform either port 0.8 function or transmit data 1 or PWM channel 4 or ADC 1 channel 1. So these are the 4 possible functions that this fellow can do. Just like the same Kamala Hassan performing 4 functions in Michael Madanagamararajan. So he can perform any character of the 4, of which this is the default character. Port 0.8 is the default character. If you are planning to perform the default character, no worry, nothing to be done. But if you are planning to use the other special functions, then we have to take the help of pin select SFR. Okay, so that is what it is. This is the default function. This is the first special function. This is the second special function. This is the third special function. Which special function that which pin select SFR we have to use and which bits we have to use requires some understanding. That is what we showed here. For port 0.0 to 0.15, we have to use pin select 0. Pin 33 is port 0.8. Port 0.8 is falling under which pin select? Pin select 0. So this is the pin select SFR that I have to deal with. The appropriate pins have to be very carefully dealt with. So that is the physics behind pin select. For UART 0, what we are discussing here is UART 0. For UART 0, pin number 19 and pin number 21 carry the transmit and the receive pins. So for UART 0, we have one transmit data pin and one receive data pin. Transmit data 0, receive data 0. Transmit data 0 is port 0.0. Receive data 0 is port 0.1. So that is the information. Second thing, set the mode of UART. What do you mean by setting the mode of UART means? What is the payload size? So you have to take UART 0 line control register. The first 2 bits are of interest: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. If it is 1, 1, then it is 8-bit UART. If it is 1, 0, it is 7-bit UART. If it is 0, 1, it is 6-bit UART. If it is 0, 0, it is 5-bit UART. What we are interested is only 8-bit UART. What do you mean by 8-bit UART means? 1 start bit plus 8 data bits and then again 1 stop bit. Totally you have 10 bits. This is what we mean by 8-bit UART. So if you want to use the UART that way, I have to put 1, 1. Then comes the last, the 8th bit. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bit number 7 or 8 bit is your DLAB bit. The word DLAB stands for divisor latch access. Divisor latch access. What it tells, if you want to access the divisor latch, then that bit has to be a 1. If you don't want access, then you don't have to put a 1. You put a 0. But we wanted to access the divisor latch. Why you wanted to access divisor latch? Because divisor latch is the one which sets the baud rate. So if you want to set the baud rate initially, make dlab as 1. Once the baud rate setting has been over, once that is done, make dlab as 0. Why I have to make dlab is equal to 0? If you don't put dlab is equal to 0, then you cannot read data from UART. So there are two crucial registers in LPC 2148. One register for transmit and one register for receive. Those registers you cannot play with if you put dlab is equal to 1. So dlab has to be 0 in order to access information from the UART registers. So dlab equal to 1 we initially put for baud rate setting. Once the baud rate setting is done, make it 0 so that you can play with the UART registers. That is the model. So the initial setting that I want is 10000011. So initially I put UART 0 line control register is equal to hexadecimal 83. This is the initial setting. Once the baud rate is done, then I put UART 0 line control register is equal to, I clear the dlab and put simply 03 with only these two values. So this is the initial setting. This is the setting that I do after baud rate setting. So that is something that you have to understand. Third thing, how to set the baud rate. Setting the baud rate in LPC 2148 is very easy. Peak clock is coming at 60 MHz. You have to put a clock divider here and derive baud rate into 16 times of the clock. Suppose if you are interested in 9600, you have to generate 16 times of 9600. So what is the divisor value that I need? The value of divisor is equal to 60 into 10 raised to 6 divided by 9600 into 16. What is the value? 60 10 raised to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all divided by 9600. You again divide this fellow by 16 times. 390.6. So that we can approximate to 391. This is 391 in decimal. What is the value in hexadecimal? Hexadecimal. Go to programmer. 391. 391. 391 in decimal is 187 is in hexadecimal. So hexadecimal 0187. So this is a 16-bit number. This divisor is a 16-bit register which has two 8-bit components. The first 8-bit component is called divisor latch LSB. The other 8-bit component is called divisor latch MSB. The word LSB and MSB is misleading. We are not dealing with bits here. This simply refers to the first 8 bits of the 16-bit divisor. DLM stands for the next 8 bits of your 16-bit divisor. So in this case, DLM is hexadecimal 01, which is this. DLL is hexadecimal 87. These two in combination will give you hexadecimal 0187, which is the 16-bit divisor. So if I use 0187, what is the end result? End result is I end up in getting a baud rate of 9600. Is that clear for you all? It's a pretty simple logic. Third thing, how to transmit data. In 8051, there is only one single register, namely serial buffer. So the user, whenever you want to transmit data, he puts the information into serial buffer. The microcontroller takes the data and then it serially transmit out via the transmit data pin, ext pin. Data flows out. When reception, when somebody is giving you the data, and somebody else is giving you the data comes again into the same SBUF, and which is going back to the user. So this is only one register which we played with for both transmission and reception. So the difference in LPC 2148 is you have two separate registers for transmission and reception. The register which is used for transmission is UART0 transmit holding register. It is holding whatever you are transmitting. So the microcontroller takes whatever the value that you put into the transmit holding register and serially clock out via the transmit data pin. And interestingly, it has another separate register called UART0 receive buffer register, where the microcontroller receives the data serially from an external device and collects that information and feeds that information back to the user. This is RxT pin. So the main difference between 8051 is you have only one register here, which is used for both transmission and reception. You have one exclusive register for transmission in LPC 2148 and another exclusive register for reception. The beauty is, if you want to play with these two registers, it is necessary that you have to put your DLAB bit as a 0. If your DLAB bit is a 1, then you can no longer play with these registers. That is the reason why we put DLAB bit equal to 0 before you start using these registers. UART0 receive buffer register is used for reception, as I told you. So this is the user. UART0 receive buffer register collects information from the user, collects information from external pin. This is receive pin and feeds the data to the user. And it is very much essential that this DLAB bit must be 0. If it is equal to 1, then you can no longer access that. That you keep in mind. So as usual in any peripheral, here comes the status register. What is the status for UART? The two status that we are interested is transmit complete and receive ready. These are the two status that I am interested in. What do you mean by transmit complete means? Whatever the data that I put into a transmit holding register, whether it is successfully transmitted or whether somebody else has given me a data which is available ready for me to take. So there are two flags which is equivalent to transmit interrupt and receive interrupt flags of 8051. So the very first bit of the status register is receive data ready flag. If this flag is a 1, that means the user has given you a successful data. The microcontroller has received a byte of data. This is similar to your RI flag of 8051, just for your understanding. The fifth bit of your status register is called transmit holding register empty flag. What is the meaning of this? When this fellow is equal to 1, which means whatever you have put into transmit holding register is successfully transmitted. And this is equivalent to your transmit interrupt flag of 8051. These are the two flags that I am interested in. One fellow is sitting in the very first LSB, which is the receive data register flag. The other fellow is available in the fifth bit. Bit number 5, bit number 0. These two flags we use for checking the status. Here comes the algorithm for initializing. What is the algorithm for initializing? Use pin select to configure the pins of UART0. UART0 has 2 pins. What are the 2 pins? Transmit data 0, receive data 0. Both of them are available at port 0.0 and port 0.1. So if you want to configure, both of them are first special functions. So if you are configuring them as first special functions, I have to put 0.1 and 0.1. So if you put 0.1 and 0.1, where I have to put port 0.0 and 0.1. Port 0.0 and 0.1 is pin select 0. So in pin select 0, the first 2 bits are concerned with port 0.0. So first special function means I put 0.1. The next 2 bits are for port 0.1. I again put 0.1 because I want to use first special function. So 0.1, 0.1. So pin select 0 is equal to hexadecimal 0.5. That is the first thing. I configure the transmit and receive pins, or I configure port 0.0 and 0.1 pins for transmission and reception respectively. So that is the first job I do. Second thing, you use the line control register for 8-bit UART with DLAB bit not equal to 0, with DLAB bit equal to 1, because you want to access the device latch access. So UART 0 line control 0 is equal to hexadecimal 83. What is 83 means? You have an 8-bit register. Out of which the first 2 bits is equal to 11 for 8-bit UART. The bit number 7 or 8th bit is the DLAB bit. I make that fellow as 1. So it is 83. And then set UART 0 DLL and DLM for 9600 baud. So UART 0 divisor latch MSB is equal to hexadecimal 01. UART 0 divisor latch LSB is equal to hexadecimal. What is the value that we calculated? 87. 87, which will give you a baud rate of 9600 baud. You can very easily calculate the values of DLL and DLM for any baud rate, which I have explained earlier. After you set the baud rate, it is necessary that you clear this DLAB bit. Otherwise, you cannot play with the serial port registers. So I again go to UART 0 line control register. Clear this fellow. That means it becomes 03. So these are the things that we do. Pin select equal to 05 means Port 0.0 and port 0.1 are configured for transmit and receive data pins, TXT and RXT0. UART0 line control register 83 means your DLAB bit equal to 1 and you are setting the first two bits as 1 1 for 8-bit UART. DLL 8701 means you are setting 9600 baud. UART0 line control register 03 means you are putting DLAB equal to 0, still setting the 8-bit UART. That is what it is, 0, 3. So this will initialize your UART. So this happened to be my first function for using UART. How to transmit? Very easy. You have one exclusive register called UART0 transmit holding register. Whatever the value that you wanted to put, you put into this register. The microcontroller will serially transmit via the transmit 0 pin. Once you put the data, how do you know that it is successfully transmitted out? There is a flag called transmit holding register empty flag. This is available in the 5th pin of status register. So you write a general purpose function. Whatever the data that you want to transmit, you put it as a parameter and you pass that parameter into the transmit holding register. How do you know that the data is successfully transmitted? You take the 5th pin, perform an undo operation of the status register. I write it here. I take UART0 line status register, perform an undo operation of hexadecimal 01, left shifted this by 5 times. If this entire result happened to be a 0, then I keep waiting there.